Welcome everybody to the Behind the Brand podcast. My name is Curtis and today we have a brand new business with us. We have Brian from HeadStrong. How are you?
I'm very well, mate. Very well.
You
Happy
good?
to be here, eh?
Listen, I appreciate you coming, mate. Much appreciated. We're acting as if I've not actually spoke.
We've only. This is it. There was a screen. There was a screen in between. I didn't even know who this guy was, and then whoop,
Brian's
up it comes.
personal assistant came in, dropped him off, and then my personal assistant dropped me off.
Absolutely, yeah. Get my makeup done.
Big time now. But everything okay with yourself, mate? Yeah.
All good, man. All good.
Bit of a stinking day for the weather.
Yeah, the weather's absolutely stinking. Absolutely horrible. But there we go. We're in a nice, cosy, warm studio.
There's always a positive.
Exactly.
Always a positive.
Exactly.
And we're recording a podcast here as well. And before we just get into the things, just to let everybody know that the podcast is available on Apple, Spotify and YouTube as well. So if you're listening to this and you fancy a video format, then jump over to YouTube. So, Brian, I was about to call you Stephen there because Stephen was in my head there. We were talking about Stephen Bartlett. Brian, what we like to do is we like to get everybody to introduce themselves first of all for the podcast. So we want to find out a wee bit of backstory about you and maybe how the business came to be. Would you mind letting the lovely people know exactly that?
Of course. So my name is Brian Costello. I grew up in Paisley. I was, for anybody that's old enough that's watching this, I'm a Sacred Heart pupil, or ex-Sacred Heart pupil, which is now St Andrews. And still live just out in Johnston. And how did the business come about? Well, I'd always been one of these people who was good at helping people anyway. Like I was when I was growing up, I was always the guy that had loads of girlfriends but no girlfriends, because I was great at listening, so they'd all come to me and go, he's dumped me, and I'd go, don't worry about it, and somehow I just knew what to say and I'd make everybody feel better.
You were the shoulder to cry on.
I was the shoulder to cry on, constantly friend zoned as well. That was my life. That was what I had to put up with. This is why I now do mental health. No, I'm all joking. So I always had this thing about, I loved helping people, and it was always very informal. This could come in actually later on as we're talking, right enough, but I never really focused on myself, which a lot of people who are interested in mental health do. They're always focused on somebody else. And if we fast forward a little bit, I ended up, after many years working in hospitality, so I've worked in quite a few pubs, in fact quite a few not a million miles away from here. I've worked in Gabriel's, I worked in the factory in Firkin, for those again who are old enough to remember that, and a couple other Paisley pubs as well. And but when I became a dad, things got a little bit more serious, and I thought, right, I have to grow up here, I have to get like a proper job, and that then led me to work for Barclays. And Barclays weren't the big fancy building in the Clyde that they have now. They were just
in that building.
I've not had the chance to go into it yet, but my sister-in-law works in it, and apparently it's like a hotel. It's apparently absolutely stunning inside as well. But maybe I left 17 years too early. I should have just waited a bit for that lovely canteen. Would have been worth it. And but 2003, I walk into a training room. And I'm a trainer by this point, so I'm training people in I'm a technical trainer, so I trained people in the technical aspects of the job, so things like tax. We were a stockbroker, so it'd be things like how the systems worked and all that type of stuff. And I loved that. I loved standing up and presenting. It was always good fun. And then we get taken into a room to be taught how to be better presenters. But what we didn't realise at that time was that this model that we were getting taught was actually a mental health model. And it was about communication. It was about, so it did suit for becoming a better trainer. It was absolutely relevant for what we were looking for. But bigger than that, it was teaching us how people's minds worked. And in that, it then taught me how my mind worked. If I rewind back to St Andrews, or Sacred Heart as it was in my day, I was the big lanky ginger kid with the specs and the spots, and I floated about as this big 6'2" kind of really skinny guy with this big mop of ginger hair. It was a Happy Mondays time, so I had a ginger curtains hairdo, split in the middle. Anyway, it was glamorous, and no wonder. I don't know why the women weren't beating a path to my door, Curtis.
I was going to say,
I don't know.
If there was ever an appeal for, boyfriend material, that was it.
I don't know why that's not it.
I say that as if I don't have curtains on my hair's flat.
So, absolutely. But I get bullied, funnily enough, in school, and that kind of left me with stuff. I mean, I've got to admit, in the grand scheme of bullying, I've got to admit, especially some of the stuff that goes on with young people now, where it was a huge passion of mine as to what with young people's mental health. But in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't terrible. Like, I'm not talking about going in every day and coming out with no teeth or like getting beaten up all the time. It was a bit of name calling and just feeling that anxiety that you feel when you're bullied. What I hadn't realised by the time I got to 30 years old, when I was learning this new model, this mental health thing, was a thing called NLP, by the way, or Neuro-Linguistic Programming, was the very first thing I ever learned. I hadn't realised how much I'd carried, came with me. I was 30 years old. I'd thought, I've forgotten all that. That's all in the past. And apparently I hadn't at all. There was loads of it still there. Anxieties about being around people, social problems where I was worried about what if people don't like me, isolating myself because that was safer and not even realising I was doing it. I just thought, that's the lifestyle. I've got kids and a missus at home. I just don't like going on staff nights out. But then when you start to dig behind that, I'm like, oh no, hang on. I'm actually anxious about those nights out. And that started to create a massive shift in me. I came out of that very first training. It was 7 days. And I came out of that very first training. I tell this story quite often. I remember a colleague of mine who was on the training with me went, what did you think about the training? And I went, I want to do what he does. Whatever that was that I just watched or witnessed for that week, I want to do that. It took another 4 years for me to get to that point where I was ready to leave the security of a salary and go out and run my own business. But I started HeadStrong in May 2007. So actually probably around the time this will be coming out, won't be far off therefore what our 17th birthday. So it was very early May 2007 with the want to be a therapist. That was what I was like, I am going to be a therapist. I want to help young people, but even more than that, I wanted to help people because my wife had been through some stuff after the birth of the kids and mentally healthy wise. She wasn't great. She wasn't particularly mentally healthy. And my original trainer had helped her and had seen the difference it had made. I was already bought in, but that was just even more of a convincer.
Just kind of really opened your eyes even more to what the possibilities.
She had 18 months of counselling and she had 4 sessions with him, felt better off the 4 sessions with him than she did off the 18 months of counselling. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. So I set off to go and help people with depression. That was 2007. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to help people who are depressed because that was the thing at that point. And over the last 17 years, I have watched mental health evolve and change, and the business has evolved and changed with that. Anxiety is obviously the big thing we talk about now rather than depression. Young people's mental health was not. Genuinely, I worked with a couple of teenagers when I first started. Now we're probably 60% teenagers, maybe even higher than that we see.
That's something that I've noticed myself. I remember, 2007, I'd have been going into high school.
Yes.
Then St Andrews, by the way, as well.
Oh, okay.
St Andy's boy.
Yeah.
And I've never heard of anxiety, never heard of depression, never anything like that. You've heard of people, and I hate that it brings it to it, heard of people taking their own lives and things like that, which is horrendous in itself, but never have I once heard anybody say due to it being depression or anxiety and stuff like that. Now, I fast forward, so I've been out of school now 11 years.
Yep.
And I'm like, I'm probably the most anxious I've ever been, more aware of what it is. I used to be so super confident. I feel like that's everybody's thing, is they've got anxiety, they've got depression and things like that. So you have noticed a big, massive, would you say more known? Obviously it would have been around at that point, but would you say more known and more people actually finding out that they know more about what this feeling is? The anxiety sort of feeling?
I think you're absolutely spot on, mate. Yeah, I think that's what it is. And even especially starting with young people. And this is a bit of a double-edged sword. We've got some stuff going on with young people just now. Excuse me. We've got some stuff going on just now with young people where a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing sometimes. It is massively positive that young people are out there learning about mental health. But when you only have a wee bit of knowledge, then you can grab that and start to stick labels on yourself, especially when you're 14, 15 years old. Yep. And just to clarify, that's not me saying that young people aren't anxious or are not experiencing anxiety. But what we started to get into is a little bit of, therefore I'm broken. And that's the bit that's the problem. That's the bit that I want to change. Therefore I'm broken. I'm never going to be better. I'm just an anxious person. I'm going to be like this forever, when that's not the case at all.
Do you feel like they're self-diagnosing themselves with other issues as well?
Absolutely.
Like, so a big thing at the minute, like ADHD.
Yep.
Do you feel like people are starting to kind of go to the point where they're like, maybe I've got ADHD, maybe this is what it is? Do you feel like that's a thing?
Yes. And though, that is now that we're just catching up with what that actually means.
Right.
So let's stick with it, because I think that's such an important point you've raised.
Just because it is massive now as well at the minute. I'm seeing a lot of, I think because of socials now, everybody's more open to posting what they're up to in their day-to-day lives now on socials and things like that, and they talk about their lives and things like that, and they've now somehow become diagnosed with ADHD and things like that as well, and it's all stemmed from they had anxiety and they had depression and things like that, and they've now came to this root cause that they believe that is that they've got ADHD.
And I would say it's actually, in reality, for anybody listening, watching this just now, it's actually the other way around. So it's not you've got anxiety and now you've got ADHD. You're more than likely anxious because you've actually always been ADHD. Right, okay. You're potentially depressed because you've always been autistic. You've just never actually realised it. So one of the things that happens in neurodivergence is that you'll mask. So especially prevalent in ADHD and autism, there's a whole heap of different neurodivergencies, but those two especially. So you imagine somebody who's autistic. So especially autistic boy, right? So autistic boys, autistic girls, it's slightly different. But an autistic boy who is 13 will have probably learned by the time he's 6 or 7, so early on in school, P2, P3, that he's not the same as everybody else. And either he will find that, and the other kids will make sure that he knows that, so he will find it difficult to get into friend groups. He won't understand exactly why, so he might isolate himself or become isolated. And the other way to do it is put a mask on. I'm fine, I'm just like you. So what I'll do is, if you are neurotypical, I was going to say normal, but put it in inverted commas, but just in case anybody's not watching this, let me say neurotypical. So if you're just a regular brain inside my head, then as an autistic person, I'll copy you. So I'll go, right, Curtis seems as if he's got his knows his shit, you know, he looks as if he's got this, he's a big P3, he knows what he's doing, I'll just copy what you do. But with no knowledge of why I'm doing it, I just know that you are it. So I then mask. Now fast forward that until I'm 15, I know this isn't me. All I'm doing is copying the people around me, and from that, therefore, anxiety can come, or the isolated kid can end up really depressed.
Yep.
But actually, the thing about neurodivergence, just because we'll probably do a double podcast on neurodivergence itself, but just for a lot of people, because it's become a big hot topic, because a lot of people are talking about it, just like you said. Without playing the old man card here at 51, because I'm a young 51, but when I was at school, ADHD and autism weren't even a thing. So they weren't talked about. I knew nobody, and what I mean by that is diagnosed wise, who was autistic or ADHD. But it was definitely in my school. It was definitely in Sacred Heart.
Even when I was in school.
When 100%. You were in school, with your age, ADHD was
probably more primary school and things like that, I would say.
Yeah, I would say that ADHD was probably still, when you were at school, though, the bad boys problem.
Yes.
The thing the bad boys
100%.
had. It was the thing those kids had that were bouncing off the walls all the time and constantly sitting outside the Headies office. Autism was seen maybe a wee bit young for this, but Rain Man, kind of, you know, the kid that was into D&D or Magic the Gathering or Pokemon cards that didn't talk to anybody. And the other thing was,
I love Pokemon cards.
I'm not saying anything. We're going to get there, Curtis. At that time as well, there wouldn't have been such a thing as an autistic girl. Because it wasn't seen as a thing that girls could have. They were, so if there was an autistic girl coming up through school with you, she'd have been seen as hormonal. And that's just what girls are like, not recognising the fact that actually they had a mental or a a psychological thing going on. So what's happening now is that now we're picking up on them all. And now we understand autism and ADHD so much better. You're starting to realise that actually, potentially, and I don't mean this, don't go and self-diagnose yourself, but in all seriousness, you start to look at your behaviour and you're like, oh, hang on a minute. And as you say, the rise of social media, more people are talking about it and more people are going, oh my God, that's me. Like, you're talking about me. My wee brother was diagnosed just at the tail end of last year. Would never have thought. So my wee brother's 42, 43. It's
probably not when you say my wee brother. And he's
absolutely, he's 42, 43. He went to he went to St Andrews as well, just a bit ahead of you, right enough, a good bit ahead of you. But it was a huge moment for him as he started to go, oh my God, and he started to realise all the answers.
Is that a bit of relief then, do you think? For him?
Huge. Absolutely massive amount of relief for him. And this is what happens with any mental health problem. See, when people start to recognise that what they're experiencing can be explained, and not necessarily given a label, that can help some people, where actually it's given a name. By the way, you've got this. But just when somebody goes, oh, that's exactly what's happening in my head. So as an example of that, anybody that's listening to this or watching this again who's experienced anxiety, for instance. So the way that anxiety tends to work is there's a chance that anybody watching this or listening to this that's experienced anxiety will know this thought of, why did I get anxious when actually I'm quite a confident person? Or why did I get anxious when at other times I'm super comfortable? Or why did I get anxious when I'm quite a happy-go-lucky person? And what nobody ever recognises is that actually you're both of those things. And what's happening inside your head, for instance, and I always love to put this out there because I'm hoping that somebody's about to go, oh my God, that's exactly what goes on in my head, is that your brain isn't just one thing. So your mind's not just one thing. Your mind is made up of lots of little parts. So I hate to say this, and Rebecca might freak out with this, but there are many little curtsies running around inside your head. There are loads of curtsies.
She would
panic. There are loads of Rebeccas as well, and loads of Brians in here too, and they're all given jobs to do. And when those jobs are given to us when we're very young, so let's imagine a situation. Where you're 10 years old, so you're primary 5-ish. And you go into school one day and all your friends don't talk to you. You find yourself ostracised. You have no idea why. You've just been pushed out. Nobody will give you a reason. When you ask why, they go, I can't believe you don't know. And you're like, I have no idea because I've not done anything. In reality, you have done nothing. It's just 10-year-olds being 10-year-olds. Yep. And somebody's decided your face doesn't fit anymore and therefore it changes. The adults around you go, oh, don't you worry, everything will blow over. It's all going to be fine. But inside your head, you're freaking out. 2 weeks later, everything goes back to normal and you're back in with your friends. But in that 2 weeks where you felt isolated and confused, your brain created a part of itself that went, that is never happening again. Mm-hmm. And I am now terrified of that feeling ever happening again. So now there's a wee Brian, Curtis, whoever, inside our heads on radar for that happening. Now, it just sits in the background because the other us is that friendly us that goes and I'm going to do stereotypical boy stuff, goes and plays football or goes and hangs about with his friends or whatever. But again, whoever you are watching this, you can put that into your own thing. It doesn't really affect you. And then you go to, I don't know, let's say you're 30 years old and you get invited to a big staff night out. It's a wee bit like I was speaking about my experience in going to school. You go and you get a job, you work up to a certain level, you get invited to a big party. And you don't know why, but you are crapping yourself about it and you're so anxious and you can't work it out because you're like, I know these people. These people are my friends. But what's happened inside your head is that little part of you that get created at 10 years old has just woken up and went, are we safe? Are we safe? What if we go in there and nobody talks to us? Now, that doesn't make any logical sense at 30 years old, but your brain is not a logical place. It's an emotional place. Mm-hmm. And that wee part of your brain wakes up. You are someone who is friendly and sociable and connected and all these things. And though you're somebody who was hurt a long time ago and you've got a wee bit of your head that's just a radar that'll go shut down as soon as that happens. So as an example, and when people bring us, especially when people bring us their kids in for therapy, they'll say, I don't know what happens. It's just like a switch. It's just like they'll go from 1 to 100. That is exactly this. It's called a parts conflict. So it's like your brain is basically fighting with itself. But what that anxiety is trying to do is it's trying to keep you safe. It's going, what if we go in there and nobody talks to us? What if we go in there and we end up alone? What if we go in there and we don't know what to say and we make a dick of ourselves or whatever it is? And therefore it's going, I need to keep you safe from that, so I'm going to shut you down. But on the flip side of that, you've got another side of you going, no, these are my pals. I want to go to the night out. And now you're pulling yourself in two different directions and you feel dead confused. And you go, I don't know why I'm like this. But actually, if you think about it, you've got one side that's protection and you've got one side that's confidence. It's just the fact they've become split. So you're either confident or protected. And what good therapy does, and the type of therapy we do, what that does is it gets you to a place where you can be both again, confident and protected. So you can go into that night out going, what if nobody speaks to me? Well, actually, that's not going to happen because I know these people are my friends now and I'm not 10 years old anymore. So when people hear these types of things, what I like to do is I talk about the mechanics of the mind. So it's like, it's understanding that your brain is really complicated in terms of all your experiences and everything that Curtis or Brian or whoever has experienced. We're all unique. But the mechanics that sits underneath that, there are people like me that can explain those mechanics to you. Not only that, but use them to make you feel better.
It's amazing when you put it in like perspective of that and just everything that you've said. And while you're doing that, I'm thinking of my experiences and as I say, like I've had depression. I've had, I don't know if I've just got rid of anxiety. I still have anxiety and things like that. My problem is probably how I manage my anxiety. And as you say, like when you sit down and you actually do it, I'm always quite quick just to say, like the bad side of it. You know what I mean? Like I have anxiety, whatever. Like you're not putting the two together. What you were kind of mentioning. It's just amazing when you put it into perspective like that, and just everything you were saying there. Just I'm blown away by it all.
Well, that's it. Sorry to interrupt there, Chris, but just in terms of you saying there, I have anxiety. What I would say is you will have anxious parts of your mind. Mm-hmm. It's not Curtis isn't anxious. It's parts of you that are anxious in certain contexts. There'll be certain things. There'll be people out there watching this just now, listening to this just now, that if the minute you put this microphone in their mouth, would be sitting here going, the minute you put these lights on and these cameras on and be like, oh, but yeah, you sit here like that. Yeah, I just do podcasting. I just sit here and talk to complete strangers and manage to get half an hour to 40 minutes of good conversation out of them. Yet there'll be other contexts, and this is a big thing to understand about mental health, is that mental health is contextual. I can pick you up and drop you one place, you'll be absolutely fine, pick you up and drop you another place, and you're freaking out.
Yep. So I find that like here, comfortable. This is my
your happy place. Yeah,
I sit my happy place. Put me. I mean, we went to a concert on a Sunday, whatever, in the middle of a crowd, nobody. I was just there with Rebecca, me and Rebecca down in Manchester. As I said, didn't know anybody. As soon as I did, that was me. Anxiety, scratching myself, the flare up, everything. I was going, just trying to regulate my breathing and everything, just panicking about what I was doing, whatever. And I'm just like, how different it is when I literally am here doing something that is, I would say, is more anxious for people to come in and do, just to come in and actually get filmed and stuff. That's probably why a lot of people don't come in and do this sort of stuff, is because they're actually scared of the fact that there is a camera, there's a light and stuff like that.
Big microphone in your face.
I'm in a dark room watching somebody else on the stage, and I'm the one having anxiety about it.
So something, we're not going to do live therapy because that wouldn't be fair on you, but there is something there. There is a way with, I would genuinely say with that type of thing, and for anybody again that's out there, and I keep on saying that because I want people who are listening and watching to know that this is not just about Curtis, this is true for everyone.
Well, that's what I was trying to do. Like there's got to be some sort of relatable thing here. With me, like in a certain situation, that they have a certain thing as well, where they have a safe place, and they have a place where they go, and they're like, I am so anxiety ridden, or as you say,
and somebody like me, I reckon in about an hour would be able to ask you enough questions about that concert experience that I'd be able to go, so Curtis, can I try this on? And I do this wee thing that I talk about my magic wand. So I'll say, here's a magic wand moment, and I'll say, right, imagine that I take you to here. And I would be able to drop you into a situation where you'd go, no, I'd be fine with that. And then go, right, I changed this. And you go, oh, no, that would be horrible, man. I'd totally freak out. That'd be, I can't believe it. And because it almost is like it's like a totally unconscious code. It's a really important thing, actually, just jumped into my head there to understand about mental health is it's not outside in. So what I mean by that is it wasn't the venue, it wasn't the dark room, it wasn't anything like that. It was something happened in your head about the dark room, about the concert, about the strangers, about that place. And this is what happens again to everybody. So can I tell you a silly kind of analogy, metaphor thing? Right, course, okay. Of course. Stick with me, folks. Here we go. Right. So imagine imagine we go for a walk, not on a day like today, right enough, right? Imagine we go for a walk out into the joys of Renfrew. We look up and there's a rainbow in the sky. I tell this story so many times. Anybody that knows me is now watching or listening to this going, oh God, he's telling his rainbow story. Telling his rainbow story again, right? Anyway, so imagine you look up in the sky, there's a rainbow, there's a few people with us. First person turns around, looks at the rainbow and goes, oh my God, isn't God wonderful? Isn't God an incredible thing that has given us this sacred experience of the world or life or whatever it might be? Standing next to them, the next person turns around and goes, God? That's nothing to do with God. That's just physics. That's just science. That's the refraction of light through water droplets in the upper atmosphere. That's just pure science. There's no such thing as God. God doesn't exist. And these two people start fighting. Next to them, our attention has been taken by somebody who's just sitting there in tears going, oh my God. And we're like, are you okay? What's going on with you? And they're looking up at the rainbow and they're going, my gran died at the tail end of last year and she always said, anytime I'm thinking about you, babe, I'll send you a rainbow from heaven. So this is obviously my gran, like, sending me a rainbow. And I really need it just now. I really needed it. You look at it, Curtis, and you look at the rainbow and you're a clever guy, so you look at it and go, that means it's been raining, because you understand that, and you go, oh no, Rebecca told me to bring the washing in, and I never did, and now it's been chucked
the pot of gold.
Absolutely. Well, there you go. That's probably better than chucking Rebecca under the bus about washing. And because I'm a social media person and do social media stuff, I take a photograph of it and I put it on saying, in order to have the rainbow, you first must have the rain. # mental health awareness, and internet strangers give me validation. The point here is that the rainbow did nothing. The rainbow sat in the sky, and whether you want to believe it's God, science, both, grannies, pot of gold at the end of it, whatever it might be, an opportunity for social media clout, the rainbow just sat there, and what every single person in my wee story did was they put their own meaning on that rainbow, and that meaning told them how to feel. Whether it be feel upset because of their gran, feel connected to a God, feel as if the wonders of science. And this is what we do with everything. People are not scared of microphones. They're scared of the meaning of the microphone or the meaning of the camera. I'm going to look silly. I'm going to get caught out here. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, I can't believe it. People are not scared of spiders. They're scared of the meaning of spiders. You were not scared of the concert. You were scared of something that you put a meaning on that room. Because I'm going into that room with the strangers and it's dark and it's busy and it's loud and it's this. That means something. And it's that meaning we have to change. I suppose going back to my original thing I said, mental health is not an outside-in thing. It is the meaning that's coming in. So mental health is actually an inside-out thing. It's the meaning that your brain is putting on your reality, which can be really confusing for young people and adults alike, why we could both potentially sit, I don't know, in fact, in somewhere like this, with somebody who's got such an amazing story to tell, so many amazing things to say, and go, why can't you just sit in front of the microphone and just tell that story? Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, we could go out to the next door room with no microphones and no cameras, and they might sit there and go, and then when I was 15, this thing happened, and they would tell the story brilliantly, and then you put this on, the brain will go, that means, and that changes it. So anybody that's experiencing anything to do with mental health, and I say this is a real empowerment thing, is to realise that it's all about the meaning that you're putting on your reality, and that meaning has been taught to you. So when you're young, when you're teeny, or even right up, some people would say probably as high as about 23, 24, normally is where this starts to become a wee bit more difficult. It can still happen, but the majority of it is in by about 23, 24, especially in that 8 to 17, 18 kind of period, that 10 years, the amount of meaning we create. So the wee guy that falls out with his friends at 10 years old, the meaning is people can change their minds really fast and there might be something wrong with me. the only evidence that this kid has got for that is that when they were 10, they went into school and their friends didn't talk to them, but they've got no other evidence to tell them what it was. Their brain went, that means we might be weird, or we might say silly things, or it means that friends can fall out with you in a heartbeat, so you better be the best friend in the world. And now you've got someone who's a massive people pleaser, or somebody who has trust issues, or whatever it is. You go through a breakup when you're 15, and now you're 35, still going, oh, well, see, because he cheated on me or she cheated on me when I was 15, I still have trust issues, because the meaning that you put on relationship is somebody might hurt me in that same horrible way.
Yep.
And the good news is that good therapy changes that meaning. It's not just about sitting talking. There are still people out there that will go do the tilty head and go, so Curtis, tell me what's going on. They'll do that. Tell me what's happening. And you go, I don't know what you want me to say. And I go, you just say whatever comes to your mind, Curtis. You just say that. There are still people out there that do that, but there are some amazing therapists, even just around this area, Paisley, Renfrewshire. There's so many amazing therapists and that can help that stuff that I've just talked about, that meaning, change forever. Like, not even just sitting there talking and talking. There are some people that do talky therapy. I'm not one of them, to be honest, but there are so many brilliant therapists out there that can change the way people think, and people think it's just going to be the tilty head, how are you doing? Yep. And it's not that at all.
It's just, honestly, I could just sit and listen to you all day, just hearing your...
It's a fascinating world, honestly, that I work in. I'm very fortunate.
I don't know, is it what would you call that? Like, just your expertise in it, it's just phenomenal, just everything about it. And like, as I say, the more you talk about it, the more I sit and listen and think about my experiences as well, which I imagine that most people watching or listening are doing the exact same as well at the moment.
Yep.
I think for the people then listening, what sort of I'm going to use the word services.
Yes.
Would HeadStrong offer, or what is this sort of? Is it a key? What were you said the kind of key? Is it? It's not key factors, is it? That's not the right word.
Yeah, but
we're kind of talking about the certain things that you do.
Yeah, certain things that I do. Yeah. So we do therapy. So we do therapy. We actually, our office used to be in Kilbarchan. And then just because as we got more and more known, we've moved the office up into the centre of Glasgow, because we get people coming from all over. It's a good central hub from everywhere. You know, everybody can get central.
Easy access, that's it. Train, bus, whatever it is.
And Kilbarchan, for all, it's very, very pretty. It is very pretty, and it was lovely to work out in Kilbarchan for so many years. It's a pain in the arse to get to.
Whereabouts in Kilbarchan, mate?
So I was based in Kilbarchan, Chiropody. So when you're coming up, and there's what do they call it? It's the teeth, toes and something. It's because it was the chiropodist, the dentist and the vets were all across. I can't remember what they called it, but they had a funny wee name for it. So as you're coming up Steeple Street, it's just in that corner, and you'll see it's a beautiful wee shop. It's absolutely gorgeous. All lovely woods and everything. But I was in there for 10 years or something like that. But it is a pain in the ass to get to. And then I moved up to Glasgow when I started taking my own offices. So we're now at the bottom of Wellington Street in Glasgow. So we do therapy. I now have a team, so I'm now not on my own. So there's now 4 or 5 of us, I think now. All of people I've trained as well. So they're all people that I really respect. I really understand what they do. I've taught them how this stuff works and all that type of stuff. Especially for people in Renfrewshire though, and especially for anybody listening or watching with a high school age kid. We are, this is the first year, but we are in every Renfrewshire high school digitally at the moment. The council, the authority brought us in to develop a thing called It's a Mental Health Thing, and that's now been delivered in every high school across Renfrewshire. So that's like lessons for, and we've made sure that they're all appropriate. So when we're talking to S1s, for instance, the first years, we're talking about change, because that's a big thing for S1s, the transition between P7, but also changes of friend groups, getting older. By the time we're talking to 5th years, we're starting to talk about controlling relationships and really serious stuff. And
kind of adulthood.
Oh, absolutely. They're now grown-ups, you know, so we're getting into more grown-up topics, and then everywhere in between. So that's out there. We also do a lot of work in schools. So we're in, for instance, so we're in Greif. We do a lot of work in Glenifer. We go in and do parent workshops. So again, if you pay attention to what's out there in terms of the information, if you are a high school parent, if you do want to recommend to your school to bring us in even more, then please, if you're listening to this, if you want to go to your local high school and go see those guys that do that digital thing, they'll come into the school and talk to the parents. We'll be happy to do that. And then we do a little bit of work with businesses as well, especially teaching people how to manage or lead or just understand mental health in the workplace. So we've done a lot of work for Renfrewshire Chamber, for instance, for the Chamber of Commerce. And done a lot of talking to businesses and a lot of work with businesses around Renfrewshire as well as further afield as well. So, but the main two things we do is the therapy in the schools. There are two huge aspects that I just want. I always say I want to work with me. I want to catch me before anybody has to wait till they're 30 years old before they start to realise that it doesn't have to be this way. And as I said, and you brought up that point right at the beginning, that little bit of knowledge, let's get in and go, yes, you have a little bit of knowledge and it can be sorted out. That end bit, you're not broken. It can be fixed. Your life does not have to be a life of anxiety. That if you gave me a billboard, then that's what I just want to say. If you gave me a microphone that could speak to the whole world, I'd go, you're not broken. You're not broken. This can be sorted out. I know there'll be people watching this going, I've tried counselling, it was pure shite. You've tried one type. I was going to say, and that's one person.
Such a big thing, and I'm so glad you brought it up. Do you feel like that just because, now I've had counsellors in the past, I've been very lucky to have a great one.
Yep.
A really, really nice guy that I worked with. Do you feel like that is a case with a lot of people, that because they have tried it once, maybe not had a good experience, it's like not one size fits all, if you get me? Like,
absolutely. There are so many different modalities out there. So by modalities, we mean one person might do person-centred counselling, but another person might do trauma-informed counselling, but the next person might do NLP like we do, and then the next person might do CBT or cognitive behavioural therapy, which is the one you'd get through the NHS. And then there's all these other things. And for me, there's these two aspects then change. So let's just take my world, for instance. I have trained countless people how to do what I do, and many of them don't do it anything like me. I've given them the skills and the tools and trained them in it, and they've gone off and not invented their own thing, but put their own stamp on it.
Yeah.
So you could go to that person and have an amazing experience and go, I didn't really like how Brian did it. And also vice versa. You could go to them and go, I tried that NLP thing, it didn't really work. And then you come to me and you go, that's not what I experienced with the other person. And that's true of everything. It's like,
they still need to have their own personality when they're doing it as well, don't they? Like,
absolutely. Well,
they can read from a book and they can get trained and stuff like that. And then, like, you know what I mean? As you say, you give them the tools.
Absolutely.
But what they do with it after that is really you know what I mean? That's what makes them a good counsellor or therapist, or whatever. I mean,
can they take that? Can they bend it? Can they make it fit you? To use a wee thing we were talking about just before we put the mics on, for instance, every place makes coffee, but you'll have your favourite, and you'll have your, and they all have big fancy, or not all of them, but many of them will have big fancy coffee machines, and they'll know you heat the milk to this temperature, and they'll have a metal jug that will happen. But that still doesn't mean you have a latte in a pub some point after your dinner and go, that was bogging. And they just don't know how to make coffee. I don't drink coffee, so it's probably a bad example for me. But it's the same thing. It's like, just because you've got the equipment, it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's going to use it in the same way. And it's exactly the same. So what I always say to people when it's about therapy is that there is somebody for you out there. And I know it's a pain in the arse that it wasn't the first person that you went and talked to, and you have to then go looking again. But any good therapist, counsellor will give you a wee bit of a chemistry meeting. For me, that there's so much of it is about getting on. It's not about the letters after their name. Yes, it's important that they're trained. Like I use the analogy of buying a car. I know not everybody will have had that experience, but you'll get my general drift. Is that you can look at the brochure and find out how many horsepower it has and how quick it goes to 0 to 60. But really what we normally buy a car in is how it looks and how it feels. Yep. Now, massive. You have to make sure that it doesn't fall apart 2 minutes down the road. So you do want to make sure that the mechanics are right and that everything has been built properly. But really after that, it becomes about the feel and all that. And that for me is true of therapy. If you feel uncomfortable with your counsellor, if you're sitting in every session going, he or she freaks me out, or I think they're going to give me into trouble, this is probably not the right therapist for you. Unless you, for instance, like that and you like that accountability of getting into trouble, then that's a different thing. But I don't get on with that at all. I'm much more a friendly base. Let's come in and get on, you know, let's even this type of conversation, you know, it's like, let's have a chat, let's get to know each other, and then we build from there. So in fact, one of the things that we did on the, and is now live in all the schools in Renfrewshire, to combat that, in second year and fifth year, they have these 2 modules that it's called the lived experience modules. So we get 2 young people to come in and talk about their experience, and then we got a whole heap of experts, CBT people, teachers, psychologists, me, and various people to then say, if I met that young person, this is how I would help them, so that the kids could see that this one person presents with a problem, but everybody had a slightly different way of helping that person to deal with it, to try and blow that idea that I've tried counselling, it doesn't work. That is just total bollocks. Sorry, there's no other way to put it.
No,
it's just total crap. It's not like that. And a wee extra bit that this is not ideal, but it's true, is that in order to get good therapy, for as long as quite often you need it, I don't know what your experience was, Curtis, but you'll probably have to go private. And what I mean by that is you're probably going to have to pay for it. And you're going to have to go and seek it yourself. CAMS gets absolutely slammed, which is Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services. So that gets absolutely slammed. And, it's rubbish. It's not rubbish. It's just slammed. And if your kid, I know that to you, when your kid's anxious and freaking out and having panic attacks at the front door and can't go to school, that's really serious. But CAMS are just young people who are suicidal, young people with serious self-harm, young people with eating disorders. This has swamped the system so much that your kid that just can't go to school, in comparison to them, they just have a higher need. And CAMS therefore runs out of capacity really fast and they can't see your kid. And then you go, well, it's rubbish, the NHS aren't helping. And yeah, they're not. But we've had a mental health explosion since COVID as well. So that's not helped. In terms of adults, huge waiting lists waiting for CBT. And even then you'll get 6 sessions potentially. So chances are mental health doesn't work in a lovely, everybody just needs 6 sessions and then everybody's better.
Ticket boo, that's you.
Yeah, that's you. There you go, 6 sessions. It'd be brilliant if we did, but that's not how we work. So getting out there and looking for a therapist or counsellor, they range in prices. You'll find people out there doing stuff for 25 quid. You'll find them out there doing stuff for over 100 quid and beyond, depending on what it is you're looking for, the speed of the therapy, how it works. If I've inspired you to do anything by listening or watching this to anybody out there, it would be just Google therapist near me, and then after that, find the person you go, I like them. They speak my language. And whatever their modality is, counselling, CBT, NLP, hypnosis, whatever it is, if you have that moment where you go, I like them, you're already 70% of the way there to finding the therapist that's going to work for you. So
it's so good to know. And I know that we've obviously talked about kids and things like that, but you do work with adults.
Yes,
like that,
yeah, we work with all ages. We just specialise in working with young people. I've got to admit, it's probably terrible to say, but I find them really easy. They're still in, if you think about that, like 8 to 18 time when we set down all those really big things in our life, if you're still in that, that's a much easier tweak. They've not got all the calluses, I say, that adults have got. They've not gone out there and got all the complications that we've got in our lives. So they tend to be quite, I'm worried my friends are judging me. I'm worried I'm not good enough. I'm worried I'm going to let my mum and dad down. And these are normally quite easy things to solve. But that does not mean if you're listening to this and you're currently 40, 50, 25, 65, you still are not broken. You're not allowed to go, oh yeah, well, you know, I'm now this age, so I can't teach an old dog new tricks. My oldest client that I've ever worked with was 82.
Wow.
And I remember the thing that we worked on, and the big thing that made the big shift on her, is I do a thing called timeline therapy. So it's like a process where I'd take you back at, what did you say, 29, Curtis? 29. At 29 years old, I'd take Curtis back to meet 11-year-old you inside your head. It's like, and what we do is we heal the that kind of wee guy inside. Do we heal that wee part? We go, by the way, the next bit of the movie, I know it was crap when we were 11. Or let's do our person with the 10-year-old thing when their friends fell out. It'd be like them going back and going, by the way, we got a great job and we've got great friends and we're really liked now. It's okay. This wasn't the end. It was like you add in the next bit of the movie, it becomes stuck and we unstick it. And we went back. She was 83 and we went all the way back to a teacher leaving school when she was 15, and she was super, super close to this teacher. And she felt so let down and so alone because this teacher left school, and she was so sad. And I remember when we finished doing it, what she said to me, she said, I can't believe I waited this long to be able to deal with that. But
it's part of 60 odd years.
60 odd years she can't, like, but then there she was sitting in the chair. God love her, she was teeny, so her feet didn't even touch the ground or on the chair. And she sat there in the chair going, I can't believe I waited this long. She's like, but I just feel brilliant. And by the way, that woman had brought up an incredible family. I met her through her granddaughter. Her granddaughter came to see me, and then it was through her. She brought up an amazing family. She's an amazing woman. It wasn't like, oh my God, she waited 60 years and she lived a life of hell. It wasn't like that. Yeah. But she'd been carrying this crap around and not realising
it's quite a lot of weight to
put it down. Yeah. You can put it down. And you might need help to do that. But that's what people like me are there for.
And thank God people like you are out there for it as well.
Yeah,
it just sounds absolutely amazing. I've thoroughly enjoyed just listening to everything you've said.
Thank you, mate.
And just it's so inspiring as well, and just it made me, pardon the pun, take a seat and think about my life and things like that as well. And just everything you're saying. I'm not saying like, oh, I'm cured, whatever. Like,
no,
cured.
Not at all.
No, but it's just when you put it in a perspective like that, and just I know there'll be people listening, watching this, and they'll be going, that really would benefit me. And everything you're saying, Brian, is just like that's. You know, that's a wee bit of me, like what they're talking about and stuff like that. And this is one of the reasons as well, like as much as this podcast is called Behind the Brand, we're finding out about you as well. I'm hoping that shows people exactly who you are when it comes to then dealing with you as well. So they're finding out who you are and what you're really all about. You're not just here just to, like, as soon as these cameras go off, you're just going to turn into a different person.
Because
the way you walked in is the way that you've came and portrayed yourself on the camera as well, which is just a credit to yourself.
I just hide the diva, mate.
What?
I just hide my diva. I just
sorry, your blue M&Ms are in the corner.
Yeah, absolutely. And I need to see all the video before I authorise it to go out. No, honestly, mate, I'm so delighted to hear you say that. And I think, when you say there about behind the brand, everything that I've talked about is the ethos behind what HeadStrong stand for. Our wee catchline is to inspire positive conversations about mental health, and that's what I'm hoping this is. It's a positive conversation about mental health. It's hopeful. It's got an end to it. It's like, oh, there's somewhere I can go, rather than, mental health's really serious. There's a lot of people out there doing really dangerous and dark things, that, and oh my God, we're in a teenage mental health crisis, and this is terrible, and that's bad, and people are feeling terrible. And yes, that's true, and it doesn't need to be like that. And there are good people out there, I hope I'm one of them, who are out there doing good things. I'm not the only one. There are loads of people out there doing good things and working as hard as they can to make it better. There isn't an infinite pot of money. So it's all very well to shout, and I get all the stuff, the government aren't doing enough. Yeah, I get that, but there's not an infinite pot of money. But there are people out there doing as much as they can, setting up charities, doing social enterprises, fundraising, doing stuff. So it takes a wee while for these things to start catching on. And as I said, 17 years ago, when I first started, we wouldn't have had this conversation. And mental health would have only just been a wee thing for you in school. Mm-hmm. It's now catching on. We're acting as if this has been like this for 50 years, and it's not. I think you were going to see a big change over the next 5-10 years in terms of funding for it, but it's going to take a wee while for everybody to catch up and that funding to be moved and shifted into various places.
I really hope
it will
does.
Come. Fingers crossed, anyway. Fingers crossed.
One thing, just before we kind of finish up the podcast, you were talking about that you've got a couple of books.
Yes, absolutely. So people can find us in a whole variety of places. Yeah, so I'll plug them all. So if you want to find us on socials, then we are HeadStrong Minds everywhere. So I think on Insta we're Headstrong_Minds, Facebook we're Headstrong Minds, Twitter we're Headstrong Mind 5, but that's because some other bastard has Headstrong Minds and won't give me it. He doesn't even use it, he's just sitting on it and he won't give me it. So Headstrong Mind 5. But anyway, YouTube we're Headstrong Minds as well, and we're putting a lot of content out at the moment. We reels, we 90-second kind of mental health tidbits and a whole variety of things, and then longer ones on our YouTube channel if you're interested and you want to hear us talk a wee bit longer about things. And I've got 2 books out as well. So the first book, which was released in 2016, I think 2016, somewhere about there, is called Breakthrough, and there's a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about tonight in there. So it's a lot of just the fundamentals. The original premise for that was, let's write an instruction book for the head. So how does your mind work? So we talk about the nature versus nurture. We talk about how you make decisions. We talk about how your mind is all about that. I don't have my rainbow story in it because it was written before the rainbow story was invented, but you now have that on the podcast. Yeah, we'll have to do another one. And then the other one is called Cracking the Teen Code, and it's a book for parents about how to understand the teenage mind and what it is that's going on emotionally and why they don't listen to you. And often that's actually the parents' fault, and I kind of give the parents some tips as to how to be just less annoying and just listen a wee bit more. But that's not always easy, and there is other things going on. There's a really in-depth... The feedback on Teen Code has been absolutely fantastic. You can get both of them on Amazon. No, the audiobooks aren't done yet. They were meant to be done during COVID, and it just didn't happen. But you can get them on Kindle if you do want them.
I love my Kindle.
Yeah.
I'll make sure to get them then.
Absolutely. No, I love my Kindle as well. It's a game changer for me. I read more books now than I ever did since I bought it.
Amazing. And is there anything else you feel like somebody listening, watching should know just before we finish up? Yeah.
I think I'll finish off just with a kind of summary of what we've said, mate, which is I think this for me is bigger than just the brand, as well as, yes, please come and talk to us if you liked what I said and you think that we can help. Again, if you've got a kid in high school, do go, is there a big funny ginger guy coming on and cracking jokes about mental health in your PSE class?
It's funny that my brother's in high school. He goes to St Andrews at the minute. He's currently in 4th year. Okay. So I'm like, he'll be experiencing this as well. So
well, there you go.
I'll be able to pull up with him.
We'll have to have a chat in a minute because he's probably therefore know my nephew as well. But anyway, so so he'll be experiencing that just now. But I think just to summarise this, just that there is hope. And I think if you're listening to this, and many people, as you've been so honest yourself and said, is that I have experienced mental health, or this has gone on in my mental health, is to know that it doesn't need to be this way. That doesn't mean that the fix is there tomorrow. There's no magic pill. That's a whole other thing. Not that I'm against them at all, but they only steady the ship. Yeah. They don't make a cure, but they steady the ship, and that can be an amazing thing. But there is no magic pill. But if you do the right thing and speak to the right person, genuinely you can be free of this. Absolutely free of whatever it is that's going on. Anxiety, depression, whatever it is that's going on, you can be free.
It's amazing, mate. Honestly, I'm dying to hear more. And
maybe I'll be back. Maybe I'll come back. I've enjoyed the chat as well. It's been great fun.
You'd be fantastic on a podcast. You'd be absolutely, your own podcast would be phenomenal on it.
Maybe we need to have a chat.
It's just me like listening, just your information, everything about it as well. You're so passionate about obviously the topic as well, and the subject and the matter. You're so knowledgeable as well. It's phenomenal. It's very refreshing to hear as well, and it's nice to hear that there's people. I know that there is. I know a lot of people that are therapists and things like that, and we've got a couple that work in here as well in the startup street, and they're absolutely phenomenal as well. But it's so nice hearing that there's people out there that genuinely do care, and it's not just business minded at the end of the day, and it's it's the end thing that people can just jump in. They'll be like, right, I'm going to do this now because I know everybody's suffering about it and we're talking about it. Like, it's nice that you care. And I can't believe how long you've been going for, so congratulations.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I can't believe it sometimes when I say it goes 17 years, is that right? And I'm like, no, that's right.
Long may it continue.
Well, thank you very much, mate.
I really, really do appreciate you listening. We're being here, sorry, but I appreciate you guys listening and you guys watching on the channels. As I say, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, we much, much appreciate it. And if you are listening and want to leave us a review, then please feel free to do so. You can leave a like, subscribe. There's also the star ratings on Spotify and Apple, so you can leave a 5-star because Brian here thoroughly deserves it. Fantastic podcast, honestly. Please do. please do. And let us know, obviously, if you've experienced any mental health battles, obviously, in the day and things like that, and maybe we can obviously get in touch with yourself and
absolutely
obviously put you in touch with Brian and HeadStrong and the team at HeadStrong, and take it from there as well. Just make yourself known. If you don't want to do it by comment, you can certainly message us privately as well, whether that be any channel as well. And you can find us on Instagram and Facebook as well. But listen, thank you so much, mate. I really enjoyed that, and it was so nice to hear. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.